Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Board YouTube channel. It's the second of our double header on a Thursday. It's our weekly show with myself, Jacob, and my co-host to the side of me over here, Kirk Evans. We're going to go through some weekly NBA takeaways and some betting as well at the end of the show. Along the way, for those takeaways, we want to talk about a few things. In particular, we want to talk about the Orlando Magic, who continue to win games. They're at 8 wins in a row now. We want to talk about the Timberwolves, who lead the Western Conference. And we want to talk about the other end of the NBA spectrum, the Detroit Pistons, who have lost 15 games in a row. Also be previewing maybe a little bit of the in-season tournament elimination stages. 8 teams are remaining. And if you've been telling the picks, we have one team alive still, potentially to go and win it all at those plus 6,600 odds. So we're feeling pretty good about that one. Unfortunately, maybe the other ones didn't go to plan, but we'll get to that near the end of the stream. Yeah, some tough ones. Well, why don't we start with that? You're reacting to it. Some tough ones. The Warriors and Timberwolves. We had both of them to get out of that group. Neither of them fortunately to get out of that group. Warriors game in particular, it was a bit late. I went to bed. They were up by like 17. I'm like, all right, maybe they win by 12. I wake up. They don't even win the game, let alone win by margin.
Yeah, no, it's tough when you have two bets at like whatever we got, like 4-1 and 6-1, something like that. Both go to minus favorites and then both lose in the same group.
Yeah.
You know, never like what you like to see, but yeah, the books caught because they just weren't factoring in injured players in their in-season tournament odds. Like Fox went down with an ankle, and then I think Curry was out for the Minnesota game, and they just weren't adjusting the odds, and then we would win those games, and then teams just were running bad after that. Same with Denver. Like, Jesus, that was a tough one as well. But we'll hopefully we cash 66-1 on the Knicks, and then easy to forget those other ones, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Obviously, the Knicks will be a little bit in tough, but we'll get to the in-season tournament closer to the end of the show. What we're going to start with today is the Orlando Magic and their surge at the top of the Eastern Conference. They have won 8 games in a row. They have the third best defense in the NBA. The way defensive rating has been fluctuating. They were top. They've been near the top, but they're right near the top with one of the best defenses in the league. They have injuries as well. Wendell Carter hasn't even been playing in this whole run of games. But the question is, like, how sustainable do you see this incredible run by the Magic? Can they keep this going throughout an entire season?
Yeah, well, you look at the numbers and there's nothing that really jumps out to you as unsustainable. Their top 2 players are like below average in efficiency. Paolo has been below average in efficiency, but Franz is shooting like 30% from 3 after being, 36%, 37% in his career. Teams are shooting well against them from 3, even though they're third in defense. And it's frankly unbelievable what they're doing. They're starting Goga Bitadze and bringing Mo Wagner off the bench, and they're the best D in the league over the last few weeks. So, I tweeted this earlier. Mosley's not getting the credit he deserves. I think he's moved into the favorite for Coach of the Year, and I don't just say that because I have a future on him. It's been unbelievable. You look at this team, it's not exactly, all the best defenders in the league. I just said Wagner and Goga, who are 2 pretty poor defensive centers. Paolo came into the league with, definitely big defensive question marks and struggled a lot last year. And then Suggs is amazing defensively. He's a beast, but they're better with Suggs off the court than on defensively. So, you know what? Give Jamal Mosley his flowers. I think it's sustainable. Out of these kind of overperforming teams, the whatever you want to call them, periphery numbers look the best for Orlando. They haven't even been good offensively. So, yeah, I think Orlando is the real deal, and the market has started to price them as so as well.
Yeah, it's interesting with this team. Like Goga Bitadze, if you told me he was anchoring one of the best defense in the NBA, I would say you're absolutely crazy. But that's the case right now starting. They're going to get healthy, as I've said, with Wendell Carter, who we've talked about on the show as a significant player for this team, perhaps an underrated player in the league. And for any team that's doing well, a good metric is defense to suggest sustainability. I don't know if this like torrid pace will continue where they're right on the heels of the Boston Celtics, the top of the East, but defense usually is pretty sustainable to continue to use. Like offensively, yeah, teams can scheme against you, and perhaps they can scheme against you in different ways with your defense. But this is a good metric to suggest that some of this is something they can keep up. Wouldn't say that they're going to be a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference all the way through the season, but I don't even go as far as say I wouldn't even go as far as say I'd be surprised they missed out on the top 6, but they have a chance. They have a top 6 potential because there's a lot of teams as well kind of grappling around who haven't really solidified their positions this season. But this is a playoff team. This just very much looks like a playoff team. If they get into the playoffs or are maybe on the way getting there, it's interesting with the assets at their disposal. Do they commit mid-season perhaps to a winning trade? Do they kind of pull the OKC move of last year and say, well, it's fun. We're still not quite ready. Let's still try to keep ourselves in check here and then see what we have in the offseason. What do you think the strategy is going to be for the Magic in that sense with trades?
It's hard to see. Like, I don't think they're trading for Levine, a guy who we've talked about a lot on here. It's kind of hard to see exactly who that piece would be. Like, there's a lot of guys who look at around the league and think, yeah, that they'd fit amazing on Orlando, but not really anyone who comes to mind who's super available. And like, they're not going to trade for Trae Young, and kind of ruin the dynamic they have. So if I'm Orlando, I'm waiting it out. They're not winning a championship this year or probably next year. Wait for someone to get disheveled and they've got all their picks. They've got young guys and then make a move. It's pretty obvious. They need a point guard who can shoot the ball. That's kind of like the next step of what they need. So yeah, I would be pretty surprised if they made any sort of significant trade, especially because all their starters are kind of their young guys. Like, it's not like they're kind of riding, vets in the starting lineup. Like, Fultz is maybe the only one, but he's not even playing and they're still being totally dominant. So yeah, if I'm them, I'm not trading. I would be kind of surprised if they made a major move.
Yeah, I agree there. And they also just kind of want to make sure that these young guys are still getting as many touches as possible and riding the wave with Wagner and Banchero doing what they're doing this season. They've been fine, but like you said, they haven't been even at their best quite yet. So I'm excited to see if they can get to those efficient levels. I don't know if Banchero has it quite yet, but Wagner, we've seen some incredible efficiency in the past. He's been underperforming in that respect, but they continue to win.
It's unbelievable that France has been below his level and they're still being this ridiculous. But I just want to quickly give Mosley some flowers on how insane what Orlando's doing right now. So Orlando right now is number 1 in turnover differential. Or not turnover differential, sorry. Turnovers forced. They force the most turnovers per game. So logically, forcing turnovers and defensive rebounding are negatively correlated. So teams typically who force a lot of turnovers, defensive rebound poorly because you're playing a more scrambly style. You're going to be out of position for turnover for defensive rebounds more. So last 4 years, teams that led the league in turnover rate on defense, Chicago was first, 23rd in D rebounding. Toronto went 3 straight years first. They were first for 3 straight years. They were 28th D rebounding, 23rd D rebounding, 16th D rebounding. So like you can see terrible D rebounding teams. If you're first in turnovers, checks out. Orlando, first in turnover rate, second in D rebounding rate. It's unbelievable what they're doing. And that kind of, I don't really see why that's going to change. I think they're 16th in defensive effective field goal. So this team, they're just pretty ridiculously good. They were 10-point favorites yesterday to Washington. They'll be 10-point favorites again tomorrow to Washington. Not that Washington's gangbusters, but Orlando being 10-point favorites to anyone, they're behind probably just OKC in terms of teams skyrocketing up their rebuild.
Yeah, the Magic, I mean, the rebuild seems to be going very well. It seems like they even skipped a phase of the rebuild already in maybe like phase 2, 3 of the rebuild here. And I was looking at against the spread numbers yesterday. Orlando are unsurprising number 1 in the NBA against the spread because market hasn't quite catching up. They're still getting there, but 8 wins in a row certainly would show maybe that there's starting to pay attention to this team. Another team that perhaps we've had to adjust some of the market on is the Minnesota Timberwolves. They are 13-4. They are top of the Western Conference after the Nuggets' dominant start to the league. And this is a team that right now has the best defensive rating in the NBA. They're right up there with the best. They've been up there all season, but right now it's 106.6 on the defensive rating. Perhaps not surprising the defense is good, but perhaps surprising it looks this good with Minnesota. Where do you think they've started to piece things together this season after being eliminated in the play-in tournament last year?
I think they made the first round last year and got eliminated to Denver.
Did they? My
Yeah.
apologies. You're right. They lost to the Lakers. That's what I'm thinking of. But they won the
Yeah,
game.
yeah, that was a good game. Yeah, I think Minnesota just kind of wants everyone to forget that last season was a thing. Like, this is kind of what Minnesota imagined when they traded that insane bag for Gobert. I think, yeah, it just kind of makes sense that Minnesota is really good. They have Gobert, who's been a walking, top 5 defense in his career. They have Cat, who hasn't even been great this year. He's been fine. They have Edwards, who should be able to lift this team to like a good enough offense. And, they start 3 high-level defenders, including, Gobert, who's pretty clearly the defensive player of the year favorite right now. So to me, it makes sense that Minnesota is doing this. I think there are maybe some numbers that are a little luck-based, but it just more didn't make sense that last year went so bad than this year is going good because, you start massive size, including the best defensive center in the league. McDaniels is an amazing wing defender, same with Ant. So it just didn't really make sense that they were like a below average defense last year. So it makes sense to me that this Minnesota team is pretty good.
Do you attribute the success this season more so down to the trade they made over a year ago, or is it more the meteoric rise of Anthony Edwards?
Oh, way more the trade, honestly.
The trade.
They're the number 1 defense in the league. I can't give that much credit to Ant there. They're playing Utah on a back-to-back, but they're 11-point favorites, and Ant's not going to play tonight. So I think Ant's awesome, and he actually has stepped up and is having an awesome year. But I don't think they're doing – I think they're a below-average defense without Gobert. They probably would be able to get their offense to top 10, but I definitely don't think they're 13-4 without Gobert. That being said, I'm not trying to justify the trade. That trade was completely insane.
That was going to be my follow-up question.
But Gobert's being a beast, exactly what they want him to be. He's kind of getting back to what you would kind of think he would be because he was so dominant in Utah with no defenders around him. Now you put him with, Cat's obviously a pretty below average defender, but he's at the 4. You get some size. And then Ant and McDaniels, those are 2 better defensive players than he ever really played with in Utah. So makes sense to me that this is a really high level defense.
That's a good point you bring up because in a lot of the Utah playoff games where Gobert got run off the floor, a lot of that was like nobody was helping him. He was out there kind of on his own, like with a guy like getting picked on like Donovan Mitchell. So Edwards stepping up there has definitely made a significant difference to the defense. Well, obviously the catalyst of the defense is Rudy Gobert, but for the Timberwolves, like the fan base, I think they're aware they overpaid for. I mean, we're all aware everywhere that Rudy Gobert was an overpay. But I think like even the front office knew that. But like this is a team that for the last 2 decades has never gone anywhere. Pretty much 2 decades, never got anywhere in the playoffs. Like you saw the reaction when they won a play-in tournament game to just get to the playoffs. Pat Bev was celebrating like this city had a championship. So like just this, like maybe without the success long term, is fine for them for that overpay, perhaps justified in that sense. But when they made this trade for Gobert, I didn't like it, but I said, like, I think there's going to be a team that just churns out wins in the regular season, is a regular season win machine. Perhaps that take delayed a year made a bit more sense, but I questioned how they would perform in the playoffs with a team like this. Do you have those question marks? I know it's early, but would you have those question marks at this point with the roster and its current construction?
Yeah, I don't think they're a serious playoff contender, and I think I was kind of exactly in the same boat as you. I think I had bets on like them most regular season wins to win the West last year. Look, obviously they came nowhere close, but this is kind of how I imagine them. A regular season wins machine, like you said. But I don't think they're a serious contender in the playoffs. Like they start 2 bigs, which will be tough. Gobert's had a a harder time in the playoffs defending. I don't really think that the offense, even now, is working that well. So, yeah, definitely serious concerns in the playoffs. That being said, I do think they match up well with Denver. I think Denver actually had a pretty tough time with them last year, and now they've actually kind of figured it out. I think they were Denver's hardest series last year. So, yeah, I think they could. No team in the West is that good. So maybe they could go on a run, but I still kind of doubt it.
I think that series with Denver went 5 games. Now I'm remembering they made the playoffs, but I remember it was like a very competitive 5-game series. It was on the cusp of being a 6-game series or more as well. But yeah, they did play them well. So with a healthy McDaniels, hopefully not punching a wall or anything, breaking his hand before the playoffs. A healthy McDaniels makes this team a whole lot better and a whole lot more difficult of a matchup for the Denver Nuggets in the playoffs if he's there. So that will be interesting to see. But I agree with you. The sustainability of the wins right now, 14-3 or was it 13-4 is kind of extreme.
13-4.
Yeah, 13-4 is kind of extreme, but I don't think it's too extreme. It's not super extreme on this one. Shout out Canada as well. 2 Canadian creators here and Nikhil Alexander-Walker, but finally finding a home over there. And I agree, the Gobert contract is still expensive, but it's a calculated risk. They're willing to overpay for the player. They're willing to overpay on the trade because they just don't know success in Minnesota with the Timberwolves. That's not disrespectful to say. Next team.
Quick.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Just to interrupt here. We're giving out bets at the end of the show, but I can see on my screen right now this is getting absolutely bombed. So
all right,
if you have Clippers +5, it's still available. Looks like Bovada, PointsBet, not super widely available. Maybe Sports Trade as well. Looks like it's up. So yeah, Clips +5 if you can get it. I like it. That's what I was going to give out at the end of the show. Just got announced that those guys were going to play at the 2:30. Open back up, I think 5.5, 5. But now I can see a bunch of max bets coming in on the Clippers, which I agree with. So if you can get Clips +5, take it.
All right, Clippers +5. I see you mentioned Sport Trade. You mentioned PointsBet, Betway, if that's available in your region as well. Also still hanging that. So if you're watching live, you get a little bit of the benefit for watching live here as the Clippers start to move here. So get them.
Apologies if you could see me just keep on looking to my left, but I just saw my screen lighting up.
Now we know why. There's no problem at all. Look, you got a job to do at the end of the day. The job is sports betting, and you're here to share the knowledge of that. So we appreciate that. All right. I just checked, and yes, Betway still up 5.5. So even if you can get that, obviously even better. All right, let's talk about the other end of the NBA standings, the Detroit Pistons. I'll read out a tweet that I got sent today by Joey Knish after the Pistons went 2-1. Last season, the Pistons held opponents to 103 points or less, a total of 4 times out of 82 games, and actually lost all 4. This season, they've done it 3 times in 3 games, 2-1 record. Fuck your analytics. Monty Williams worth every penny. Monty Williams, the 7th highest paid coach in North American sports. Incredibly, they have not won a game since that tweet. They have played 15 games since that tweet by a friend of the network, Joey Knish. I get they're bad. And I remember when they were 2-1 on my personal channel, I remember people trying to tell me, oh, the Pistons are going to be decent this year. I'm like, no, they're not. They still suck. Don't get fooled after 3 games. Here we are, 15 in a row. We knew they were bad. We didn't know they were this bad. Why are they this bad?
Look, hard for me to victory lap too much on this channel after giving out a bunch of duds on the in-season tournament.
Yeah.
But I told you guys Cade stinks. And he still stinks, and he probably always will stink. That's by far the number one problem. He's probably the worst high-volume player in the league, maybe of the last 5 years. This is his 3rd year. He's terrible. Get the ball out of his hands. That's number one. Number 2, everyone is bad on this team. Like, Duran's solid. Past him, everyone's terrible. So, I just don't really see why this team would be good. They have a lot of young players who are bad. They have no veterans who are good. Burks is their best player. And, if Alec Burks is your best player, you're pretty terrible. So it makes sense they're bad. What really didn't make sense was the hype prior to the season. And what they have to do is kind of the hardest thing to do in sports, and it gets everyone fired. And Weaver is going to get fired, let's be real. But they have to reset the rebuild. And that's the worst thing to do in sports. You rebuild 3 years, and then you realize, nope, it's a dumpster fire. It's a dumpster fire. We got the number 1 overall pick. That number 1 overall pick is bad. He's maybe he could be a good wing, but we haven't even proved that yet. So you got to reset. You got to focus back on the draft. What else are they supposed to do? Trust Sasser and Ivy to be, the next great Pistons team? Maybe if they keep this rebuild going and keep going with that, maybe one time they get like an 8 seed. But I guess they're kind of doing it by accident anyway. They're the worst team in the league, so they're going to get a top pick.
Yeah,
but
true.
They cannot think that this core they have right now, is anywhere close to having a future.
So I asked this question earlier today. We had the show with myself and Pips. I asked him the same question about Cade Cunningham and Monty Williams. I asked how much of Cade's poor shot selection, because it's been a couple of weeks since, or maybe it's been 3 weeks now since you had your rant about Cade Cunningham. A lot of that we're seeing even more now. I'm starting to maybe come around on the Cade, like, okay, I don't know if this guy can actually lead a team, but how much of Cade struggles shooting wise and at shot selection wise is on Cade, and is more of it or less of it on the coaching in Monty Williams?
No. I can't blame Monty Williams for this. Cade did the same thing under Dwayne Casey. Look, I thought I said it at the time. I thought the Monty Williams hire didn't really make any sense because I thought they had a bunch of bad seasons coming. And, it's hard to commit that much to a coach. He's pretty much unfireable at this point. I think Monty Williams is fine, though. I don't really think he deserved that insane contract, but I think that it's more on the front office than on Monty. Maybe it's on Monty because he should give Ivy the ball and let Cade play off ball more. But I just think it's also due to the lack of talent on the team and the way Cade plays. But it's kind of just on all of them. But I would definitely put Monty at the least of that totem pole, because he's kind of told Cade is the franchise. He's the guy. We got to put the ball in his hands. And this is also what Cade's done for 3 seasons in the NBA. Obviously, those have been cut short by injury. But when Cade played last year, he was doing this exact same thing.
Right. So some doubts creeping in. I still think
the doubts have crept in. They're
here.
They are here. They have here more than arrived.
Well,
for me, Pistons are 15-point dogs tonight. 15-point dogs, or 14.5. Like, if you're 14.5-point dogs with your full roster, I guess no Boyan, but he hasn't played a game this season. Like, let's be real, you're terrible.
What were they against the Wizards the other day? I'm gonna go find the spread when they got
unserious. It was 2.5. The unserious matchup. They won the unserious bowl by losing to the Wizards by 20.
Yeah, that's remarkable. Losing by 20 to the Wizards, who are also on a hefty win streak. I got to see the Spurs against the Pistons. I hope that's on the schedule coming up, because at least the Wizards game was like one team has to win. One losing streak's going to end. The Spurs need to play the Pistons at some point, and we can get that one. A comment here saying that Monty is doing his best to create a defensive mindset in the young core. It's just not happening. I mean, you want to create a defensive mindset, like, sure, but you also have James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley getting actual minutes for this team. They can't play defense. They've never been able to play defense. They actually I forget what they traded for Bagley, but it was something of like, there was some significance in the package they gave away for Wiseman.
Yeah. So they traded Sadiq Bey for Wiseman, and they signed Marvin Bagley to like a 3-year contract for real money, when Marvin Bagley probably would be a minimum player if they weren't going to sign him. So yeah, those are two of the, honestly, not in terms of bad for like how much it affected the franchise, but two of just like the most off-market NBA moves of the last 5 years. And they were both made for centers by the same guy. At some point, you also got to look at Troy Weaver and think this guy is just not it. He makes terrible moves. Sadiq Bey would be the Pistons' best player. They traded him for nothing.
Yeah, the management is pretty horrific as well here.
No doubt.
horrific as well, the way they're building this team. But I think, well, like you said, there's no point of like making any drastic trades right now. They're going to be bad enough to get the picks regardless at the bottom. There are I like Ivy. I like Duran. I think that those guys have successful futures coming up. I would like to see them in like a proper team. Like there's just this roster is littered with guys who just like barely NBA caliber. Like is Isaiah Stewart really
No, Isaiah Stewart's
NBA caliber? I don't
like
I mean,
he
does
can
he have
be
a
a
home on a
backup pick.
roster?
Yeah, I think so, but he's not very
Sure.
good. And also, Ivy, I think does have talent and actually is a decent offensive upside, but he is creeping up the unserious rankings. He is one of the worst defensive players in the whole NBA. He gets lost. He's too small. Monty does not like him. I think he's actually kind of being forced to play Ivy right now. He started Killian Hayes over him. That's how you can see how much Monty likes him. So yeah, I think that, and like Asar Thompson, I was watching last night. The guy's shot like 7 threes. I don't think he's hit a 3 in a month. So yeah, I think Asar at least does look like a pretty good piece, to be fair to Asar. Yeah, everyone else, I'm not so sure.
There's a bit of pushback on the Osar criticism. He can't shoot, but
no,
he's a good player.
I said Asar looks like a good piece. His shooting is dreadful.
Yes.
But everything else looks solid.
Yes. So Cade's usage this season 31.2, which comparison to Giannis and Dame Giannis with no Dame is 38 last season. So Giannis gets 38% usage. Cade Cunningham gets 31.2. And if this is true, Isaiah Stewart best 3 points from the team.
He has been good this year. Cade is in 100th percentile usage, 10th percentile points per shot attempt. I think like 0th percentile in turnover percentage. So it's bad.
Those are real stats you just said.
Let me confirm where he is in turnover percentage here. But
is his usage at?
Sorry. Okay, 100th percentile usage, 11th percentile points per shot attempt, 10th percentile turnover percentage.
Where's just curious, where's Wemby in usage percentile? Because like
he's really high.
Because I know the Spurs are playing horrible basketball, but like they want to. They're just letting Wemby do whatever. It's the Wemby show.
Wemby loves to chop.
Tagging along. Exactly. If Pop cared about winning, he'd say stop shooting. And that would make the team better immediately. If he cared about winning, he wouldn't start Sohan at point guard. But it doesn't seem like he's worried about that right now. The Pistons, I'm sorry to say, I think they actually do care about trying to win these games. And they lose by 20 every single night. Like usually 14 spreads are like end of season tanking teams. This team is still in like the first quarter of their season pretty much.
Yeah, no. Wemby's actually similar in terms of Cade of like 95th percentile usage and bottom percentile and points per shot. Yeah, the whole Wemby, the Spurs have been really weird for 2 years. I know this is in the Spurs segment, but they just are so, I hate to use this term because I use it so much, but they're so non-serious. Like, why are they starting Jeremy Sohan at point guard? He's a power forward. They're horrific when he's on the court. They have Trey Jones, who's fine. Wemby never plays center. Like, I just don't really get like
they don't care about winning. That's what I'm saying. They clearly don't care about winning the way they're playing. Comment saying that you're not a fan of the Sohan experiment at point guard. You know who else is not a fan of the Sohan experiment at point guard? Jeremy Sohan. He hates playing there. He doesn't want to play there, but he's being forced to play that role, and it's not helping his growth.
Calling Jeremy Sohan a point guard is like calling me a supermodel. They're just not things that are true.
Yes. I won't say anything to that, but you make a strong case for yourself over there. I was gonna say about the Pistons, what would be the way to like how do they even start to solve this? Another thing we didn't mention, by the way, for management, they could have traded Bogdanovich. Reports suggest two first-round picks were offered, and they did not take it. How did they do that? I don't know. Like they traded for him, and I think they traded him, then they re-signed him, or they signed him as a free agent. One of the two. They definitely re-signed him as a free agent or signed him as a free agent.
Yeah, they traded.
My thoughts. They traded for him
and then signed him. Yeah, I think they traded for him from Utah. Honestly, it was a good trade because they did everything right up until the point where they had to trade him, and then they didn't.
What I was going to say is they signed him because we'll retain this asset. This will be a player a lot of contending teams would want. Then we flip him, and then when they came to flip him, they didn't flip him. They still fucking have him. Oh, what a mess. I'm sorry, Detroit Pistons fans.
And he's
I'm very
also
sorry.
like one of the worst defensive players in the league. Like all help
Yes.
their offense. He's awesome. He's an incredible
Yes.
shooter, but he cannot move. He's probably going to be a bit out of shape coming back and coming off a calf strain. And he's a
Yeah.
year older on this defense. Oof, it's going to be ugly.
Well,
I hope they start him. I hope they start Duran at center and then him at power forward, because then their defense is just going to be so bad.
the question from Jay here saying, do you think that both picks were real though? I'd guess at least one was protected. So, yeah, it's contending teams. So they're not the best picks, but like 2 picks, that's better than what you're getting right now. Like that's something you can actually use.
I agree with that take though. I saw that report. That report came out like yesterday or something, or 2 days ago of that.
That's why I said reportedly. Not
like
confirmed.
every NBA report you need to kind of take with a grain of salt. But like even one first, like they'd be better with one first. They're going to be the worst team in the league this year. They don't really need them.
What are they planning? If they're holding him, what are they planning to get down the line? His value goes down every year. It's probably its lowest it's ever been because of the injury. We don't know what he's going to look like when he gets back. It'd be hard to do anything with this team. So if anything was really on the table.
You look at good rebuilding teams, they accumulate assets. Detroit has not even thought about accumulating assets in this rebuild. It's not shocking to me that this is such a disaster, but it is at this point.
Yeah, so I think like you said, they'll let this disaster play out all season and then see it in the offseason. But I don't know. I seriously doubt that the golden boy Cade is going anywhere. I don't know. I know you don't.
Are they going to max him out? Is that going to happen?
Yeah, they'll give him a rookie max. You don't think they will?
No, I think they will. It's just a fascinating scenario of like everyone putting their heads in the sand and saying, "Oh, Cade's good because he doesn't play." What player in the NBA history has been good but always puts up horrible stats because of his teammates?
Are you fully out on Cade? Like giving up? He's never going to be like a star sort of player.
Oh no. I'd be pretty shocked if Cade was a star in the NBA. The only way I could see it is if he's like a very good, like, I don't know what the comp would be, not Jaylen Brown in terms of like they play a different style, but like kind of like that secondary ball handler who can score, shoot, defend. Because Cade is big and can defend. So if they change him to like a 3 wing, maybe, and that because also he can't shoot, so we'll see. A lot of things would have to go right, but yeah, I'm pretty much as out on Cade as you can be.
There you have it. You've doubled, tripled down on that, and I don't see it turning around this season. So you're safe for a while. Maybe you're always going to be safe with that one because not trending upwards. All right, let's go to the in-season tournament here. We spoke about the bets earlier that have not gone the way of the show.
66-1. Let's win that.
We have the 66-1 available, or that we still have riding. We have 66-1 for the New York Knicks to win the in-season tournament. Lost a little bit on the Warriors, Timberwolves twice. The big loss was the Denver Nuggets. Now, these bets that were made here were you're banking on like the game coming up, the injuries not being accounted for, which was smart because, like you said, the Timberwolves and Warriors at one point were negative favorites to win the group. Timberwolves we got at plus 450. Warriors we got at plus 195. And the Nuggets was the big one, though, minus 190 to win their group. And they flame out after a big loss to the Rockets.
It's tough. Yeah, like, I don't know. I would have to look back at the implied prob of the money lines in those games. We were definitely favored in both, but we definitely hit that in the Nuggets hitting a pretty rough spot in their schedule. Something that, honestly, I probably missed on. Look, I think minus 195, like, based on the money line prices we got against the Pels and the Rockets, probably was still like pretty significantly plus EV, but you know what? You can't pay the bills with plus EV. We lost. I got to soak that. And yeah, it's tough. Losing a minus 200 bet also just stinks, but
yeah,
it is what it is. Nuggets now Murray back looking to turn it around, but just pretty ugly, especially that Pels loss. I think they were 5-point favorites in New Orleans. They win that. I think the group's won. So yeah, it definitely.
That's what you were banking on. That was like, okay, like if they win that, it's over. So like, yeah, they just got to win as big favorites there. They didn't, but again, the process is there. We understand. Maybe not one of our viewers here saying Dolce saying he's got to eat cup noodles with his family because
honestly, and every
Kirk
pick I've
Evans.
tweeted has also been like unbelievable losses. I think I haven't tweeted a pick in a while. Like the last two out of the three totals that closed with like 3 points of value lost by like 50.
You're going
So
into hiding on everybody. You hiding
my
away from the picks?
yeah, well, my account's been mush, and I actually need to win these bets. So I'll get back to it. Let's win these two. I'm gonna give out two props. Hopefully the Clippers win, and then we're rolling.
All right, yeah, we got the Clippers one if you were watching live earlier. Before we get to the other two, let's talk about the in-season tournament as it is. So the Knicks, they snuck into the elimination stages here with, I think it was their big win on point differential, got them into this stage against the Hornets. I think they beat the Hornets by something like 20. Regardless, they're here. They're playing the Bucks as the 4 seed in this bracket. What do you make of the New York Knicks' chances here? And overall, who do you see going through and winning this thing at this point?
Oh, the Knicks are going to win this tournament. I think so. I think opening line is Knicks +6. I actually like that line. Yeah, the Knicks are really good. Obviously, I think Boston's probably the favorite. Boston's just the best team in the league by a significant margin. Other than that, like, I probably think the Pacers aren't going to win. I think any of these other teams like are all pretty close. Like, if I had to rank them, I'd probably go like after the Celtics, the Bucks are probably the second best team. Then like you really get into it, you know, who do you have better? Suns, Lakers, Knicks, Kings. Those teams are all pretty close. Even the Pels now getting Murphy back and getting CJ back there. This is a great tournament. Great tournament. I like it a lot. This is going to be really fun. I think the teams are going to take it really serious. So yeah, I don't think the Pacers are going to win because those are two really tough matchups. But anyone else pretty easily could win. I like taking a lot of long shots on this tournament because it's one game and then two of them it's one game elimination and then two of the games are on neutral court. So like no one's going to be huge dogs other than maybe like the biggest spread of this tournament probably will be Celtics Pacers. So really anyone could win this tournament.
So the Knicks right now, best available is +6.5, but market's around 6.5 on that one. The other game where that could come into play, let me find the other semifinal here and see.
Yeah, I can tell you. I think Celtics are like 4.5, 5.
Yeah, 4.5. So the biggest spread is the Knicks, probably for the whole tournament.
What? Quote me here. Those will turn around. The Celtics will close bigger favorites than the Knicks versus the Bucks.
We'll quote you. So we're praying we're praying on that 66-1 here that we got at BetMGM. We have it tracked here, but let's get to today's picks to end off the show. You have two today you wanted to share. What do you have for us?
So two picks, both props. LaVine over 20.5 points at -110. I think pretty widely available.
Yeah, I'll pull it up here on BetStamp. We can shop for the prices here. So yeah, 20.5. I don't really need to pull it up. Everywhere's got 20.5, -110. Everywhere's got -110. If you see -115, don't bet it. You can get -110, even to -105 actually at Betway on LaVine there. Best we can find.
Yeah, so this is around fair with LaVine and DeMar playing. Both are questionable. If LaVine doesn't go, it'll obviously void. DeMar's injuries just was pretty substantially worse than LaVine. I think LaVine goes and DeMar doesn't, and pretty simple logic. I think DeMar probably at best is 50% going to go, and even if you have it 50-50, then this over 20.5 is pretty clearly good.
So Zach LaVine just banking on DeRozan not being 100%. I mean, he's not going to be 100% regardless. And if he doesn't play, well, even better. This probably closes like 2-3 points higher. So getting ahead of that injury news, as always, can be a good endeavor to play with betting. But what is the second play that we have?
Buddy Hield under 4.5 rebounds. Don't take it at like Caesars or FanDuel. Let's get -110 here. There are a few out there. DraftKings MGM -110.
So Buddy Hield under on his rebounds. If this is not as widely available, I can pull it up here. Buddy Hield at 4.5. There's -110s out there. MGM, PointsBet, DK. Yeah, ESPN bet if you're playing over there as well. So find a -110 on Buddy Hield under 4.5 rebounds.
Yep. -115 fine as well if you
What's
want it,
the
if you can't find it.
what's the handicap behind this one?
Yeah, he just hasn't really been rebounding this year. His rebounds are way down. I think it's mostly signal. Kind of makes sense. He's playing with a good rebounding guard in Bruce Brown. Just really, I bet this last game against Portland and was just really surprised to see that it
So did I.
came up. Yeah, I was surprised to see it came up same number, harder rebounding matchup. Oh God, don't want to knock over my camera. Harder rebounding matchup. He didn't play very many minutes against Portland. It wasn't even a blowout. Nemhard's back. Neesmith is back. Minutes aren't guaranteed. It's just like too high. It's really the reason for it.
Okay, so maybe a lesser followed prop here while the books have yet to really adjust to Buddy Hield's rebound numbers. We're going to play the under 4.5 at -110. So if you caught the whole show today, you were able to get that Clippers play. If you're here now, unfortunately, you're a little bit too late. That number is gone. But Clippers,
Yeah,
we
it does
have
look like Clippers is full gone at this point.
Clippers are gone at this point. Did confirm live on the show that this was available. So unfortunately, if you're not watching live, like, not always the best practice to go on a show like this and give out the lines move quickly, but just as it was live, it happened. But 2 plays you can get: Zach LaVine over 20.5 points and Buddy Hield under 4.5 rebounds.
Hey, 4% CLV in one episode of a podcast. That's pretty good. But we lose every bet with CLV, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, this year listen, if CLV was something I could cash out financially, I'd probably be able to buy a home right now. But usually a good metric, perhaps not quite this season in that endeavor for myself. But hopefully Clippers can help us out there. This has been the show, with myself, Jacob, and Kirk Evans. We go live here every Thursday at this time, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, to go through the weekly stories in the NBA. Next week is going to be exciting as well. We're going to be in the midst of the in-season tournament. The NBA, we're going to have a bunch of games, bunch more to talk about. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel. You also get the Pick and Roll show with myself and Pips NBA every morning at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. So you get a ton of content with the show. But if you enjoyed this one, be sure to smash that like button. Myself and Kirk Evans, we'll be back in a week. Myself alone, I'll be back tomorrow morning with Pips at 11:30. And we very much hope to see you there. Thanks so much for watching.